Is this happening again?
I think that's you. All right. Episode 112 is off to a fantastic start.
As always.
We're all in the wrong chairs. Nick's not here, but me and Matt are going to have some fun, and we're going to get started right now.
Nick, where are you?
Welcome to the only real estate podcast worth listening to, with your hosts Nick Good, Matt Kelderman, and Brian Force. Combined, they have 26 years of experience and have sold over 1,500 homes. Join them each week as they bring you everything you need to know about real estate. And now, here are your hosts, Nick, Matt, and Brian.
All right. Episode 112. I'm in Kelderman's seat. He's in Nick's seat. Nick didn't say where he's going out of town to. I think
Nick's
it
in a
was
plane
secret.
seat.
Nick's in a plane seat.
Nick
Perfect.
did his like typical thing that we all do to each other, where it's like the last minute, like you get a text message like, "Hey, by the way,
I'm not going to be there.
I'll be missing this week's show, so let's fucking figure it out."
So we're going to do our best to figure it out today. But before we do, please go and check us out on iTunes. Leave us a 5-star review if you haven't already. We're trying to get our reviews up. So I think 5-star rating and a review, because you can do either or, but we prefer it if you did both. Do both. Exactly. And today's episode is brought to you by our kick-ass sponsors over at Sphere Rocket VA. We're actually about to bring on another VA, so we got to hit Justin up again for another VA. We are adding to our staff once again, which is awesome. And everybody that we've ever connected with over there has been tremendous. He runs a ridiculously tight operation over there. So if you're looking to leverage more of your business and do it economically, check out SphereRocketVA.com, as well as Mortgage Mike of Texas. That is Michael DePacker with USA Mortgage. He is legitimately our mortgage guy, not just to sponsor the show, but he's the dude that we entrust with all of our buyers and sellers. Our sellers,
Hey,
when
our sellers become buyers.
Yeah, there you
right?
go. I'm killing the sponsor spots right now, by the way.
Murdering.
Check out mortgagemikeoftexas.com if you're in the North Texas area. That's Michael DeBacker, and he is our main guy, and Nick's as well over at the Good Home Team. That's it for sponsors. So
That's it. Those are the only two we got. Those are the only people who decided to hitch their wagon to this damn train.
3 years, and we finally got two people to be like, yeah, we trust you, I guess.
You know what I'm most excited about today? You and I are known for all of our videos.
Yes.
And I also don't think people would probably be surprised they would be surprised to find out. It has been a long time since you and I have done anything together, just you and me.
Like, legitimately.
When we were talking
I
this
haven't
morning,
been just talking to you in 6 months.
So here's the thing is, right? So this almost might be the perfect jumping off point organically for this conversation. How do two dudes who literally were 2/3 of a tripod starting this thing 2.5 years ago, who spent every waking moment together, right? All of a sudden in the past 6 months hit this critical mass point where like you and I have to find, it's almost like a marriage where we have to find time to go have dinner together to talk about the things we need to accomplish inside of our marriage. Like that is of the fucking craziest thing that I had no clue would be on my mind until we started. I just all of a sudden looked across at him and I was like, this is such a familiar place. And I haven't been here for so long.
It's, if you want to get even weirder about it,
Let's get weird as shit today.
like with the marriage example, we used to you could call, so we used to coach together.
Yep.
And you could say that like we used to have marriage coaching together, and then even our coach was like, I'd like to see you individually now, so that we have coaching sessions individually and not even together anymore.
Even the person that we see outside of this professionally to keep both of our heads right is the same fucking person. If you guys understood how intertwined, and for those of you who are friends with Brian and I personally on Facebook, I would encourage you to reach out to us, because we're never going to be in a space where we're not going to share, right? But
True.
like I see Patrice and I see Nate Fisher, and there's so many people watching right now that like see us like I am the most since my divorce, I am the most third wheel person in this relationship ever. We travel places together, right? Like I literally heard Brian talking today. I didn't even told him this. He's going to find this out right now. I heard Brian talking today. We shot a video this morning for a new agent that we brought on. We'll be rolling the video out in like a week or so. And I hear Brian talking today. They're like, well, they had dinner last night. And all of a sudden my head perked up. I was like, hey, who the fuck was it fucking dinner last night? Because I sure as shit wasn't there. So why are you eating dinner with somebody? I became a jealous spouse.
You go to dinner with other people?
There's no food being consumed here if Kelderman isn't there. It's the silliest thing.
That is hysterical.
That's so funny.
Well,
dude.
I went to dinner with Jenya and was 2 nights ago? Two
Yeah.
nights ago, not last night. But yes. So, but I like where that's going.
Yeah.
I think to actually like explore this a little bit, we got to go way back in time. Because
Way
what's
back.
happened in the last 2.5 years, and this is where I catch myself having to be like humbled a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think we both are pretty good at moving forward a lot and trying to like forget the past a lot.
I definitely love to forget the past.
It's like to say, how did two dudes who like feel like they barely even know what they're doing sometimes end up, in this position that they are? Back up to like what even brought us together in the first place. I remember the day that we even first sat down and started talking about this. This is literally the last time I think I've cried as an adult. I was in tears in my fucking kitchen because I didn't want to be in the real estate industry anymore. And it wasn't even because of the money or anything like that. Like my bills were paid and like, it was fine or whatever. Like I wasn't where I wanted to be.
Constant Hulk punch to the face.
It was, dude. It was just like I had just gotten fired again from a buyer for no other reason than that I wanted him to sign a buyer rep because I had shown him 20 houses already without having one signed. Rookie mistake on my part. I waited too long to introduce that idea. They balked at it and literally just texted me right before we were supposed to go houses, and they're like, "Hey, I'm using somebody else." Like, and literally even said like, "If you hadn't tried to make me sign that agreement, I probably would have trusted you more." And I was just like, so I was like literally in tears. I was yelling out loud like, "I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I hate this business and all this stuff." Because I felt like I'd been wronged for like the umpteenth time, which this industry will do that to you.
Of course.
And then your ass called me at the right time. You're like, "Do you want to go get a drink?" I was like, you have no idea how badly I want to get drinks, plural. And then we went out and just kind of like started bullshitting around about this idea. And you were like, "I hate this part of the business." And I was like, "I hate this part of the business." And then it was like this revelation all of a sudden, like, and the revelation for me was like, let's be honest with you. The revelation for me was like, well, couldn't get any fucking worse. So like, let's just give it a shot.
I have probably had a very similar thought process. I remember at some point from a team leader perspective, all of a sudden looking around, and I was acutely aware of people were pissing away my money and then looking at me and being like, "This isn't worth enough." And I was like, "Why don't you die?" And I was just so annoyed and like my feelings were hurt. And I've talked about this on the show so much. Like I haven't done a disc in 16 years or since 2016.
Sure.
Which kind of goes back to how all of this, when we really start talking about when you made a left turn, it should have been a right turn, right? Like me coming to Keller Williams, Nick already being here, how this whole thing formed, because the podcast existed before Brian and I existed as business partners.
The podcast existed when I think
it
I was
existed in the
still-
studio,
I think
and
I
we
was
weren't
still
even business
productivity coach when
Yes.
we started doing that.
Dude, we were already at Real News PR doing the podcast as individual CEOs of different teams.
Sure.
So, and when we understand, guys, when we say 112 episodes, we're only counting the studio episodes. So if you
we've
just
been doing it
backtrack
longer
the
than
math out, like, and we skipped a bunch of episodes in the middle. We used to really fart around with this thing way
Yeah.
too much. But there was a point not that long ago.
It was July 20th of 2018. We've been doing this for 3 years now.
Okay, perfect. And you and I have been partners since April of 19.
Yeah.
Right. And I think some of the biggest things to come from that are like, I can't imagine going back and being in the same frame of mind. And I hope that people hearing this are encouraged by it. We didn't put some sexy freaking title on it because like we're talking about like just how silly this whole thing's been, and it's more fun. And if you've been in any part of a journey, I don't know why today there's so much nostalgia around today for me, right? Like I think doing the video with Jessie this morning and having her kind of talking about how long she had watched the interaction before she bought in, right? Like I've talked about this before and I'm not really the biggest fan of Matt all the time, right? I don't have a ton of self-love, which I think also causes me not to really look back and appreciate some stuff every
Sure.
once in a while. So having a situation this morning happen where Jesse was like talking about why she partnered and how long she'd been an observer,
Yeah.
right? I've had that happen to me a couple of times in the past couple of weeks, and they've all been really profound for me. It's kind of like getting a word. For those of you who go to church, I used this analogy with something the other day. For those of you who go to church, it's kind of like when somebody else comes up to you and they're like, God told me this thing today and it's so great. And the other person is like, yeah, really awesome, right? Like, oh, cool. Sometimes it's just a word for you, right? So like, I don't expect this to be incredibly profound, but I've had a couple of times recently where it has been completely undeniably true that other people have seen value in whatever the hell, because that's part of this title. Like what in the hell happened? I still don't really know.
Yeah.
Like we're reminiscing on stuff, but I don't know at what point other people saw value in it, right? Like, cause that was their experience with it. I've also hearing their experience has made me so much more appreciative of some of the times when I thought we were just hacking through the drudgery of like figuring this whole thing out. Be like, oh, that person was watching.
Yeah.
Right. Like an agent texted me the other day, they signed up with Mike Cuevas from episode, was that 109 or something like that, Jesse?
Okay.
The
Marketing guy.
Yeah. The marketing
He's
dude.
badass.
They signed up for him. They're like, dude, after you get through his exterior, which he's the marketing dude, he even owns in that video. They're like, he's really awesome. He's helping me on a brand. He helped us on that show. Like, it's just seeing little incremental things like that allowed me to realize like, hey, it's really cool to have this environment that other people find value in. And that wasn't something that just personally I ever felt like I would contribute to the conversation.
Well, and going back to like your question about like, when did that all start? You know what I mean? Like it certainly wasn't right away, right? Like that's probably the most, trying to like retrace our steps or something. Like whenever we decided to merge businesses, we had 4 people that we lost right away. Immediately within a week.
Yeah.
It
like talented people too. Not like agents who were destined to fail. Like people who was like, hey, you somehow weathered the storm of my leadership to begin with. I've got this better situation. And they were like, nah.
Yeah. They're like, no, we're going to make it better. I promise. Yeah. It went from, we had so much excitement. That's the thing is like people kind of, I don't know how people see us from the outside, but like, we merged right away with like high, like I remember we first decided to even partner and we went out to dinner, got super hammered. We were like having fun, celebrating and stuff.
Like the first year.
And then like real work started and we had such aspirations right out of the gate. And then immediately every agent we had left us. And it went back to, it was me, you and Lady. And that was it, just sitting in the office, and we were just praying that we put up enough deals between you and me that we could pay the bills that month. And then everything else was kind of an afterthought.
Yeah.
And like, this is back when I was, we were trying to grow. And so we were trying to even figure out the value proposition. Like by the grace of God, we ended up in a great organization.
Lady was our full-on value prop for 12 months.
Sure.
It was, hey, we have somebody who will literally
Something's never change.
Well, and here's the thing is, and I don't even say it's different now. I'm saying now we have other people that she gets to lead as well. But like the amount of, and what I don't want to get lost in this conversation is the fact that like, and we'll talk about some of the sacrifices that had to be made, because Brian and Lady made massive sacrifices to make our business work right at first, from a financial standpoint and what those dollars translated to per hours worked. Because Lady's ass, dude, you guys don't understand. The value prop initially, and still is, but now we have some leverage with it. But what was all encompassing in Lady was all transaction coordination and all listing management. She also would drop off signs in lockboxes. She would take measurements. She would meet photographers. Like it was literally, hey, agent, go and take the listing, continue to nurture the relationship. But the actual management of all gathering feedback, which I don't, as a real estate agent, if you think feedback's not valuable, I will just argue with on that all day long.
Most of your referral business is going to be based on your ability to communicate.
I 100% agree.
That showing feedback is huge.
You thinking feedback is not relevant just shows that you're not mentally nimble enough to understand how valuable that is.
Such an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I'll fight you on that. Right in the middle of all this feel good stuff, I'll fight you straight up on that. But she did all of that stuff. All of that. And it allowed us to go to agents and say, guess what? You don't have to do. And they were like, what? We're like, nothing. Right? Brian and his 5 things. And but that took sacrifice. It took me partnering with somebody who understood his own personal finances on a level where he understood exactly what he needed to make. We understood exactly what our numbers were. And we were like, okay, let's get there first, right? Can you be the engine of production long enough to where I don't lose what little bit of money I have, right? And dude, that took 8-9 months. You would definitely be able to pinpoint the number, but I was very much aware that you were taking a financial hit for close to 3 quarters, if not a little bit more.
It was
to make stuff work.
It was 8 months before my income outpaced my bills every month.
I
so I was
no
smart
doubt
enough to have some money in savings, right?
Yes. But we're talking about why this partnership made sense. It's because there's one that you and I just couldn't be more different as human beings, right?
I think that's one thing that if you've never hung out with us in person, if it gets lost on people because we just we interact so well with each other. It's not until you meet us at the first I think you see how different we are.
No.
In so many ways.
In every way. And I'll be honest with you, I've said it all over social media. I love the shit out of you, dude. Like part of the reason why all of this works is because for whatever reason we're in like this really amazing space where you and I can agree and disagree. You know enough about me personally to be able to walk alongside me and hold me accountable, right? Like there's all these things that make our relationship in particular kind of a little bit easier. I think we talked the other day. It was like, we've never had a full blown fight. Like we've definitely had hard conversations.
We've been passive aggressive with one another.
Oh, dude, when you talk about the reason why our coach broke the two of us up, I think she was probably like, both of you were bitching on the back end about stuff. And I need to just be able to talk to you individually and just so we can deal with this on our own. Right. Like I'm just devoting too much time. She's like, and also you guys don't get me every week. I can only deal with you every other week. So straight up
100%
just take a T&P from us.
So we merge.
Yeah.
We're in an empty room. This is the part
they left the closet
that I think I was a closet.
It was such a closet.
This is the part that
expenses were low.
I think that we're both really good at just blocking out some of the hard shit because it's funny. I need to remember some of this stuff, right? Because
I'm kind of glad we're doing this.
Yeah, I am too. We need to talk about it out loud because it's so hard. Like you said earlier when we first started, we don't really know what worked and what didn't. And I think that's just because the only commitment we really made to one another was we would just continue to show up every day.
Yeah.
Right? And then, so I'm trying to remember that interim when it was just the three of us. Right. And then I was focused on building systems and figuring out how to bring more value to other people. Right. You were focused on production and basically being the guinea pig for all my crazy ideas. You still use some of dude, we built that automation, that expired automation 2.5 years ago now.
We haven't talked about that in such a long time.
And we take listings from it to this day.
Oh, dude. I mean, literally tomorrow, a 1.2 will close because of it.
Yeah. That's nuts.
I will tell you right now, every expired, you could pull up CTE and look, every expired I list is 100%
I
from that.
I
bet you it's $5 million a year that is just.
No, I was going to say 10 million total is probably where we're at this point. I bet from that one text message automation, it's got to be.
But what happened at first?
That's what this talk about failing forward and stuff. So we have Boomtown as our CRM. And if you they're really good about protecting their deliverability and their servers and stuff.
And we thank you for that.
Yeah, because it keeps us clean and off a bunch of lists that we don't want to be on. And we blew up 6 accounts trying to experiment with this expired text message campaign. It was to the point
Bitly links in it. It was a paragraph and a half.
That's how I found that out. Is I was literally on the phone with some of the carriers like AT&T customer service, all type of stuff, and I was trying to explain. First of all, I was trying to explain to them why I was even calling them. I was like, "Look, I use a different program to send mass text messages, but they're not being delivered to wherever." I was like, "Why? Why do you think that isn't your end?" And they're like, "Well, what are you saying?" Anyway, I rattled off what was in the text message. They're like, "Yeah, you can't do that." You can't do it. And they don't unflag your numbers. So that's why I had to shut the accounts down because we couldn't just do better next time. Once that number is flagged, it shut it down completely. So we had to start new accounts. This was costing us a fortune at the time.
Think of take that forward to today and think about how we talk about automation with the team. Like, because here's one of the things, and the podcast has never been about any of our individual businesses from the standpoint of whatever, but Brian and I have got a platform now to sit here and talk for a couple hours because I ain't got shit to do.
I don't have anything to do, man.
We can just sit here and talk about this. Exactly. So like there's this whole phase now where we talk to our team about automation, and if people were to see the level of circle prospecting and the level, like just what we're able to do through different specific types of automations and having a seasoned database. And this is something that I'll totally take an opportunity to shit on Nick about because he ain't here to defend himself. but here's the thing is his damn CRM hopping is so ridiculous, bro. Guys, look, the advantage to having, and I will not accept Nick's opinion on this because he's never had one.
Yeah.
But the advantage to having a seasoned database, the Her Group DFW database is now fully 3.5 years old.
Yeah.
Right? It is fully deeply 3.5 years old. And from a CRM perspective, that is an eternity. The ability to see the life cycle of a lead, the ability to see the communication, it doesn't even matter what agent had it, just because over time the deleted users show up. And it's not even relevant. But to see the conversation, to see that the person still hasn't bought or sold, which again, those are leads that on some teams would be like, those are old leads. Dude, those are leads that are way more liable to do shit because it's been 3 years since they thought about it, right? Like our ability to kind of automate and speak to that whole thing now and take new potential business and pull it into that automation, dude, that's one of the things that I think when I think about how we're able to offer different business opportunities to different agents, like Jesse said this morning, like allow agents to do their own business inside whatever this framework is. It's because stuff like that exists. It's because we don't have to think about some things that are really, really hard for other agents. We kind of don't really think they're hard anymore because we busted the shit out of Boomtown 2 years ago. And now it's like, okay, we understand the limits and we'll just figure it out. Right.
Like whenever I fundamentally believe this. I fundamentally believe that whatever the next thing you're trying to build or like whatever the next problem you're trying to solve, until you solve the problem before that. So if you're trying to solve this problem, every problem beyond that is so magnified because you haven't even solved this problem yet. But it's like Mario. When you beat one, it's not like you start at level 1 and then you have to fight Bowser at level 2, right? You start at level 1. Level 2 is a little harder, but you've already beaten level 1. So now your gap is not from 0 to level 2. It's from level 1 to level 2, right? So like every problem is magnified all the way down the road if you haven't even solved problem 1 yet. And that's sort of where we get to look back, and that's sort of where we are now. But back then, all I wanted to do was figure out that damn expired automation. But now it's funny how if you could retrace our steps, like how many things that led to, because I think that's really what became, like, honestly, if we can kind of identify how we started to grow from there, it was you being the guinea pig for all my Kanye West ideas. And then when they started to work, we would use them in conversations in the room. Like this is back when we were still cold recruiting, right? Like I was straight up cold calling agents to try and get conversations with them about the things that we were doing and what they were going to lead to. But we didn't have a track record at that point. So you became the track record. So like the expired automation, I was like, Matt just took a listing off the expired auto. Now I can sit back and be like, dude, that thing's probably worth $10-15 million in business in the last few years. Like we forget that that's almost even running every day. Like that shit's been running for almost 3 years, well over 2.5 years now. And I forget that it's even running now.
I think that was the very first thing that you dropped in.
It really was.
I can't think of what would have been before that. We certainly had, no, dude.
That was
100% the first thing.
And then it was, there's a lot of other stuff. Like, it was a lot of Google pay-per-click remarketing stuff. It ended up being a million different things.
Of course.
And where we were able to use those things to push us forward was using your success around them to continue to tell the story. Like our story basically became like I didn't know what I was doing from the aspect of trying to do all things at once and build systems and all that type of stuff. You didn't really know what you were doing from trying to produce and be a leader at the same time, right? And so we married each other, and then you just basically became you were such a a heavy referral and relationship based agent, and then you became the poster child for everything that systems can do for you. And the story basically became, if it can work for this fucking guy,
That's exactly
it can work for you too.
Dude, that's exactly what it was. And the best part about that was, it couldn't have came at a better time too, because and here's the thing is, I don't want any part of this story to be, we're definitely at a stage in the story where I think telling the majority of it's super relevant. Like, Brian and I partnered in April of 2019, and I moved out of my house in September of 2019. Right. So like, there was a ton of like super heavy shit going on at the same time. Right. They got immediately like Brian was unaware of the like impending like fucking avalanche that was coming down the mountain, because I knew it was coming, right? Like, I saw it coming. For all my divorce folks, it's like 4 months out. It's like, you're definitely aware shit ain't going right. So,
We're just trying to find the right day.
just trying to give the motivation and toss your hat in the ring. And so like there was also a lot of external stuff that was happening, and I think that also shows up a lot in the conversations that we have now. And I think in a lot of the ways that, while the majority of our team has come to us through some sort of already having an understanding of who we were, meaning like you and I have put out enough content, right? Because that's a whole other conversation, right? The taco videos and just the dudes that we were 2.5 years ago, we wouldn't replicate that, right? Like, there's no doubt, if you are a friend of the show, that you hear the squadootion of White Claws during this whole thing, right? Like, there's like, it's a college party, and that's fine. But there was also a time where it was way less dialed in than that. And it was the attraction based part of it was fine. Also, it's not a fair representation of, I think, even who we were then. But I think it's a great representation of two dudes who were trying to figure out exactly what an attraction based business, which we didn't realize we were building, what that looked like.
100%, right? And it definitely was. It wasn't even a good representation of who we were then, because it was only on camera, and we only turned the cameras on when we were doing something like shooting content that involved us like doing a restaurant review or drinking or something like that. Like, it's so funny because I'm doing it right now, right? Like, but I've always been called like the White Claw guy. I don't really drink these that much. It's only during podcasts, really. Like, this is not a fair representation of who I am as a person. But I feel like our whole dynamic was like that for a long time. And we've recently had these conversations in which one of the things that I will put a feather in our cap is that we've always really had a desire to learn from other people, and we've always really looked up to a lot of people, and we were really, really obstinate about doing our things our way in the beginning. And I think that the reason that we're really stubborn about that in the beginning is because we were sort of, it almost felt like we were playing with house money, because when we first started this business, we were so burnt out on what we were doing already that we're like, look, this is either going to succeed or it's going to fail, but we're going to do shit our way. And it worked for a long time. And then I think naturally we started to understand that, like, there is a ceiling on how much people can tolerate Matt and Brian in that regard. You know what I mean? Like, we've even had conversations down to things like, look, like, I know that, because I think people miss a lot of that stuff too. What people see is the fun that we have doing what we're doing. And that's genuine. We have a passion for this business. We have a passion for our team and our families. We have a passion for what we get up and do every day. And the part of that passion that's usually forward facing is us having the fun part. What people don't see is the hard work. What people don't see is all the blood, sweat, and tears. And we don't go above and beyond, because we're not like bougie like that. Like, look how hard we were, like, rise and grind every day. Like, we just don't do that shit, you know? And so people just kind of think it's a fun circus around here all the time. So we've actually had to have like legitimate direct conversations about dialing it in, even down to like, man, we got to start dressing better at the office and on camera. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, we actually have to go harder, have to try harder to show people what the genuine nature of us in this business is. Because the most of the time that people see us, it's the 1 hour a week that we're doing this shit, and people think that's what it's like around here all the time.
Well, and here's the thing is, like, I've always I was never really a part of a team growing up, right? So like, I really glommed on, like, as a person who always had like all the FOMO of missing out on like really cool stuff groups of people were doing together. Like, that's been super fulfilled by the team. And so like, what I've found is that as we've gotten bigger, some of the, antics, I guess, for lack of really like anything better to call them.
That's a good way.
Like, it's different now, right? Like it's much more of a family feel. It's kind of like, and I know you've experienced this feeling, but it's kind of like going from being like not having a kid to having a kid a little bit, right? Like it's like I still do the same stuff. Does brunch still happen? Sure. Do mimosas still happen? Certainly, right? And it also kind of stops there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's not till 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's not completely balls to the wall. And it feels a little bit like that now. Like it's not that people are counting on you, right? Like I don't walk around all day long being like, people are counting on me to do the right thing, right? Like that's just not something. But I really enjoy the dynamic that happens. And I'm very aware of the fact that all of that exists because everybody in there genuinely likes each other. And I'm protective of that feeling more than anything else. I'm also completely unaware of how it happened.
I think that's the one thing that we've held on to. And like how that happened is this is like, we have to acknowledge just in general to everybody and anybody listening, like we've been very lucky.
There's
with
some
a lot of this stuff.
dumbass luck involved.
Yes. So like us just sitting here trying to like school people on how to do this, like, dude, find the right people and get really lucky too. It does happen. But I think what we have kept intact, and we talked about this a little bit this morning, is like we work really hard to make this business very valuable to people and very systematic. And I think we work just as hard to make it really fun for people. And why not? Right?
So.
Like I love that the community and the organization that we've built really sees itself as a family, which also is crazy to me because for several reasons. We have a very large spectrum of people from all walks of life. We're like 85% female, led by two goofball guys. Like we've done, I don't know how we've done a lot of things right, but I think what I'm trying to get at is that this industry will just try to beat you up in so many different ways. I don't understand why other business owners or leaders aren't actively thinking every day about how they can make work more fundamentally fun and enjoyable for people, because we talk about this all the time. Everything does come back to mindset, and we focus on the tactical stuff enough. I think that we specifically have done a really good job of trying to make it really fun to show up to work every day.
I hope so. I feel like over the course of time, right? Like the people who have really enjoyed the environment have been people who have opted in probably before we realized it, right? And I don't think that has anything to do with other than the fact that you and I kind of tripped and fell into the value of video from an early on standpoint. So because here's the thing is anytime we want to kind of stop down on video for a second, here's why video is so valuable, right? It gives you the opportunity to engage with people in a mass situation, like where a lot of people can enjoy your words or opt out of your words, whatever. It allows you to build an audience that's willing to listen to whatever that message is. And if they find it applicable to their life, then they apply it. Otherwise they leave and they walk off. Right. And the huge advantage that I think that's brought to you and I is that we haven't had to convince a lot of people of who we are, because here is what putting hours of yourself on tape does. It kind of exposes the majority of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody's got their things that like you can.
So I've had to erase some.
Definitely sneak back. Yeah. Right. Like go try and find those taco videos now. Right. Like, but the reality is like there is a part of this that I will admit that we didn't stumble into. We made an effort to get on video. Right. We made an effort to give back. We made an effort to do in-person classes. Right. Like that's one of the other things that we haven't even really talked about. Like Brian and I, for all of 2019, were very much committed to like just doing lead generation, lead follow-up, and team building classes, right? And we would give out our cell phone numbers, and it wasn't a recruiting pitch, but definitely we were showing you like, hey, here's what you can do. This is also probably going to be super impossible to do on your own, right? If you're interested in discussing how you could do your own bit inside the framework of something else. And at the time, we weren't 100% sure what that framework was. We had guinea pig me. Chris Wise was already a part of the group at the time, and she was very bought into the idea of bringing it down to bringing it back up type of thing. So like we had some really great opportunities, but there's 100% a time where we had an idea and we were talking about the idea and we had very little like scientific control evidence that it would be successful for like more than a person and a half.
You and Chris, 100%. And it hasn't changed. I think that's where you can identify some of that stuff. One of the things I don't think that we've ever really like struggled with, I don't know a lot of people that do, but I think there's oftentimes there's two different types of leaders out there. Maybe there's like the type that they don't want to share anything, because they feel like that's their heart and soul, their proprietary stuff, their whatever. And then there's some of the leaders that are like pumped it up way too much. You know what I mean? Like they almost like it's almost posturing, just saying everything amazing that they're doing and all this type of stuff. And I think we did really well. Again, this was just like our commitment to just being ourselves, and we're pretty chill dudes. Like we were always really committed because we've been doing those live events. We didn't do many last year, obviously, but we've been doing those live events since 2019. We're doing another one tomorrow, so we're still doing them.
Tomorrow.
And we've always been really, I think, good about like, here's what's working for us. We'll break it down for you step by step. Understand that like a lot of shit goes up in flames around here all the time. So like maybe don't think that everything that we're saying is like always like, this is not a foolproof system.
No,
it never will be, because if it ever was, we'd go try new stuff. And we would love to talk to you personally if you have any, like we've never done, we've never, our business, I should say this, our business started to grow when we stopped trying to convince people
that's what it is
about how amazing we were and all this type of stuff. We just started to look, if you don't really like our message, that's fine. You're probably automatically going to tune out. There's probably value in there. And if you just wanted to come to one of our live events and sit and observe, totally cool. If we never hear from you again after that, whatever. Also, here are our personal cell phone numbers. We'd love to talk to you if you do want to talk at all. And like we spent hours in those rooms just breaking down exactly what we do. You could take literally our entire playbook and go recreate it for you. You'd have to go through all the shit that we went through.
Sure.
But you could do that.
There's not a super big shortcut, right? Like Brian's told me before, we were driving to this like potential like $10 million like ranch listing.
Yeah.
It's like 2 hours away. I'm like bitching about this book, Relentless. It's the most annoying book I've ever read in my entire life.
The writing's not great.
Yeah. And I was so annoyed by it. And Brian and I are talking and we're driving. I think Brian was driving, which was another story.
Matt does not like that.
Brian and I don't drive the same.
If you've ever wanted to find one area where we could not be more polar opposite, is fucking dude. He's racing Google Maps so hard. Like he's trying to take, like he's like, if he gets there anything more than 80% of the time that Google said it's going to take, like if it's 10 minutes, he's got to get there in 4. And I'm just, bro, we're all trying to get there where we're going. We'll get there when we get there. I like listening to my music and my podcast. I don't care. I drive like a grandma.
I know. We balance each other out though, because we're both also on the 5 a.m. flight on vacation.
Oh yeah.
We're like, let's get there immediately.
Get there,
the day
dude.
has to start.
Yes.
This is an actual day of vacation. Let's get there immediately.
100%.
I don't even have any idea what the conversation was before that. I've completely lost track.
We were talking about driving to the ranch.
Oh, so we're driving to the
books.
ranch, and I'm reading, and I'd been reading Relentless, and I'd put it down because I was just annoyed by it. And so I'm talking to Brian, and I know I'll totally mess up the actual genuineness of what I said, but the gist of it was like, I was like, the most annoying thing about all of these books is that they're all just like, it's just the same shit, man. It's all this guy is just talking about, like getting up earlier and doing like whatever, and like Brian's driving, and I don't even think he like skipped a beat. He was like, well, that probably means something, doesn't it? And I was just like, yeah, dude. I was like, and in that moment, I realized how childish like the feeling emotionally was, where I was like, I understand that the path to success looks super similar in all these guys' lives. I'm also really unhappy with the fact that that is what I have to do. And I don't want to hear that. So why don't you kiss my ass and keep driving 65 miles an hour?
80.
Yeah, I know. So it's just, I think, and I don't know where the hell that story was going, and it doesn't really matter, but like, I think one of the really cool things was there's never been a point in this entire journey where I have ever questioned what we were doing. right? Like even that appointment may weirdly be the best example of that. We got that appointment from shout out Joe Rosen.
Yeah.
The lady who introduced me to him in Minnesota, Miss Margaret. That was somebody that was a part of her network. Then we went down, and just very honestly, it was, as real estate agents, there's just some properties that are just, you have no business touching. And this was one of those, right? It also had the greatest summertime southern picnic tree in the middle of a field you have ever seen. One of those huge ones.
It was like from a movie.
Oh, dude. Like, I want to just go lay under and take a picture of myself. It would have been so amazing. But either way, like it was one of those listings we had no business taking, but it was a really cool, I realized that we have referenced that drive because it was long.
Yeah. We
have referenced that drive in so many ways in one of those sharp angle turns in our relationship. Right. And that's, to go all the way back to the title, if you're looking at 2.5 years, like we now have this expanse of time that allows me to see where some of the right and left turns were, right? Because we talk about being nimble. So I think there's been lots of course correction in relationships, business building, decision-making, all of that stuff. I think, but one of the coolest things that 2.5 years has now afforded me is the ability to look back and be like, I remember when we hung a left and that was actually like the best idea ever, right? And so we have that now. And that's one of the coolest things that gives me confidence in our decision-making going forward.
When do you think it was that like we talk about, man, I can't remember the exact like chart or term or whatever, but you talk about like, like your inception and then you're like, whatever you talk about, like you're grinding and then like your messy middle and then you find momentum.
Sure.
And then momentum starts to feel like when like your basics are covered, you don't have to worry about the business falling apart every second of the day, but now you're like hitting some momentum and like, it's like when you start to feel almost a speed wobble, you're like, I really want to straighten this thing back out and point in the right direction so it's going where it needs to go. Like, when did you start? What was the point where you think we started to hit like an actual stage of like momentum?
I distinctly remember the reaction to COVID in March, April, and May. Right. Like I very much remember that feeling like, because I remember having conversations with you about us hitting, we may only been in the teens at the time, but like what our game plan was for early 2020. It's like, okay, there's pendings are starting to happen. We're starting to have people who are consistent. We're starting to show real value to people, right? Like they're closing deals that are from the things that we're providing and the leverage that we have, right? Like, and then, right, like all of a sudden we both bought Xboxes in March of last year and just decided we were going to play Call of Duty until our head popped up, right?
We were just not video game guys at all. We're like, what is the best thing to do inside all day?
And it immediately stopped when it was all over too, right?
We haven't been on. We should play tonight. I got to re-up my subscription.
We probably should. But like there was just all this stuff happening, right? And so like I think there was a real lull. And then I don't really know when the year took back off last year. I'm sure we could go look at it. I had I'll throw numbers out there right now because in May or something, we closed 52, we penned 52 transactions.
Yeah.
I saw a Facebook memory where I was celebrating us doing, I think 22, right? So it was,
to pull up,
and that was, that was last year, right?
Yeah.
So there's been some exponential growth too. I don't know at what point I felt it take off. I know at what point I felt the market shift. That was early this year. I felt the market shifting into a space that was pretty crazy. When we talked about 176 units last year, 172, 177. When we talked about the units, and then that was a pretty big moment. Just looking at the number and recognizing how difficult that was, and there were people that I had very, very much respected that I had said if I had a business like them, I would be like, I would feel like I had made it.
Yeah.
And those numbers 100% factually verified that the businesses were the same. That was really cool. And it happened again just a couple of days ago when I'm sure you were aware of it because you're all over the numbers and I'm just not. But like when we pulled up the freaking mid-year numbers, dude, and it was essentially last year's numbers.
Yeah.
Every time I see a percentage-wise type of thing that is just factually undeniable, even my desire to like kind of even my desire to kind of like poo-poo on that stuff, right, has to go away because I'm like, dude, that's just freaking bananas.
Well, I feel like people maybe like if I'm trying to think of how to say this without not sounding self-righteous, but I'm trying to put myself in the shoes that I used to stand in. It's like you hit the nail on the head. Like we got to a point last year that where I was the same as you. I look back and I was like, I remember a time when I said that if we were able to accomplish something like this, like we would have made it. But it doesn't happen overnight. So what happens is it happens so gradually. By the time you get there, it doesn't feel as transcendent as you think it's going to feel. Not nearly, like you don't feel like you've made it at all.
You want to know that this, I won't even say this is surprising because it makes me sound like I wouldn't be interested in this part. But the best part about this is at some point I became less interested, like just in the fact that I didn't really know what our mid-year numbers were until like you looked them up and I saw it and I was like, that's really amazing. I am so much more interested in the people. Like when we were looking at the agent list the other day and we were kind of looking at like, okay, where's everybody at from a percentage standpoint? How can we help everybody? Like who are the people who need the most help, right? Like we realized it's a really small list and it's not even people who necessarily need help. Their production's in alignment with the goals they've told us.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't think we have anyone on the team who here's how I'll prove the shit out of this. I just had my own epiphany.
Oh, live on air.
Twice today, I have been told by people that because we asked the team yesterday to reevaluate their goals.
Yes.
Right. And I'm going to shout out Her Group DFW for the majority of people doing that because that's one of those bullshit real estate things that people tell us all the time. And then we're like,
in one ear out the other.
So shout out to Kristen for actually reaching out to people and making them do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then shout out to people who actually responded because that's a really hard thing to do sometimes on a team. And 2 people today told me they reevaluated their goals. 2 people and increased them. Because one person had already exceeded them mid-year, right? And all of a sudden I was like, dude, there is still a part of me that thinks that is bananas that I am a part of that. Like, I don't think that way. Like, I'm going to reevaluate my goals mid-year. I'm like, no, I need more. Like, I don't do, like, it's crazy to be in alignment with people like that, right? And if you're one of those people, like, I just want to applaud you. That's not a mindset that everybody has. And it's a mindset that I definitely find particularly, I don't know what's the right word. Like I really enjoy when I see somebody who's like that. Like I respect those type of people.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
I think it goes to where I was kind of like last year was a huge year for us. It was a huge year for everybody in one way or another. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a huge way in a good way. Like for a lot of people, it's a huge year in a negative way, unfortunately. But for us, I think that's when I can identify where we sort of hit momentum was. So our merger with Chris Wise was like, I love Chris to death, but it was also, it was also super scary, I think, for all of us because it was a merger of completely different types of businesses, different types of philosophies. Yeah. Like it was a lot of like, that's when things got super serious around here.
Yeah.
And that was late 2019. We didn't really start to hit. I started to realize we were hitting momentum when we were able to weather a lot of regulatory storms and a lot of scary stuff. Like March of last year was a really scary time because we just didn't know what was going to happen, right? And we were working day and night when we weren't playing Call of Duty to just figure out how to get people in houses, get deals done, just like figure out how anything was going to happen. And where we're at now, right? I think our biggest value proposition above everything else is still leverage, right? And Chris has an incredible business. Got to call her out after this because we got to figure out even more awesome systems and support because her business keeps increasing. It was the point where I was like most nervous that we weren't going to be able to create a systematic way to continue to move forward and support people because the world had just shut down, right? And I was terrified that like, look, more leads doesn't mean more business if we can't get into houses, right? We've got to figure out a system to make this shit work, right? And somehow through, what the hell was that? Go to the Jesse Cam.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, Kelderman's saving.
Saving.
You're saving him. We're saving him.
My camera beeped.
We'll figure it out. There he is. Hey,
Hello, people.
and we
Hello.
there we go. I'll let you fix it while I talk. We not only weathered that storm, but Chris has been in the, I think that was like her 17th year in the business or something like that. Our biggest issue, our biggest opportunity with Chris right now is that her own business overwhelms her at sometimes, right? Like she's on pace to be a millionaire real estate agent by herself this year. She's on pace to do a little bit over $30 million of production. And it's mostly self-generated. We build systems around helping and supporting her self-generation. Like she's big with the B2B interviews and things like that, which we support and try to build systems and framework around. But more than anything, it's just leverage. And there was no bigger litmus test to, I think, our ability to provide a framework for leverage to keep people in their like in their zone, their sweet spot or whatever, than Q1 and Q2 of last year. And when I think it was April of last year was when we did like 20 something pendings or whatever. And it was like a month after the whole world shut down and we were able to actually increase what we did from March. This is when I felt like, okay, like if we can figure this shit out, if we can figure out how to close deals when you're not even legally allowed to show a house in Dallas County right now, this is a real business now. Like if we can figure this type of like global economic crisis type shit out and still support people, the business has changed a lot since then. But that was when I first started to feel like we were getting momentum and we were doing it with people that put their trust in us and we came from a totally different walk of life.
That was, I think for me, that was the part that Jesse
We're going audio
had
only.
me on
Go to
camera.
camera 4 there. Camera 4.
Camera 1,
Camera 3.
Camera 1.
Camera 4 is dead
Camera
completely.
1, camera 2. Oh, I can see myself. Camera 1.
Well, you're recording. There you go. Get off
Camera one.
recording.
Camera 2.
It just switched modes on itself.
Ah,
Switching modes. All right. I'm going to switch
GoPros.
back.
Silly
Right.
GoPro.
I think there was a point where we reached some kind of stabilization, and I feel like it was always there was a stabilization that came along with Chris because it allowed. I was always uncomfortable, and I've always said this. I was always super uncomfortable with like having to do this insane level of production, right? Like I've talked to you about this, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Just
not
the
because I don't
the
want to
pressure of it.
Yeah, like I've said this before. I'm fine with being on the podium and being like, "Hey, everybody, we're up here, right? Like this is awesome." Where Brian's
you
like,
just want to get hit with the champagne.
"Yeah,
you don't
dude,
need to
I
be
just wanna
popping
be
the
there.
bottle.
I just want to be there, bro. Like I'll 6-man the shit out of this bitch. I don't give a damn. You know what I mean? And that's not. And look, don't mistake that for like a lack of wanting to win. Like it's just the anxiety for me that comes along with worrying about that shit is debilitating sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It's also why this partnership and partnering with people like Chris and Joanna and Jenya and Jesse and Ashley. I don't want to leave it out.
I just feel like we should mention everybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like every single person on the team puts real effort into their game plan, right? And like that was the weirdest thing as somebody who was never really like super focused on how powerful that was, to have people like really seeing value in the conversation and people really seeing value in the direction, in the coaching, because I always kind of poo-pooed on that crap.
Yeah.
Right. Because I was like convinced that like my natural ability was as far as I was going to go. Everybody had a finite amount of willpower. Right. Like I've said that on the show. So
You've said that. Yeah.
like you just have this finite amount of willpower. You reach this end result. And it's like, all right, man, that's the amount of shit you can do. And anything after that's it's just kind of too hard for you. Like Brian's mindset is just, he used to get punched in the face. He's used to like doing stuff that's hard. Right. Like, so it's like, it was just all this excuse making. And then when you have to have like certain just honest conversations with yourself about the fact that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And all of that's just you making an excuse and trying to be really vulnerable, but also not putting any actual action to it. Right. Which was like a really hard truth that I got smacked in the face with like 2 weeks ago, you know? And it's all of that stuff is really awesome though, because only people who give a shit about you are going to tell you that in the first place, which is kind of cool.
Nobody who doesn't think that you're an amazing person and worth talking to is going to have that conversation, because it's a really fucking hard conversation to have.
So isn't it so cool to be a part of a group of people, whether it's a team or just friends? Like, this isn't even like, I don't give a shit. This isn't even real estate related, right? Like, the coaching thing I'm doing honestly has nothing to do with real estate.
Sure.
It's all personal self-growth stuff. It is just really cool to be in any environment where you get to hang out with people who are also in a growth mindset, right? And it sometimes it feels weird when you venture outside of that conversation, because some of the shit you say sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm just really grateful to have a room full of people who are pretty much kind of all in that same orbit at different places, right? I've never experienced that before. That's the coolest thing about what's happening right now.
And I think it should be like, we didn't really get on here to start talking actionable advice, but I think that does like come back to like something.
Why we
is
did
like
all this.
we are so blessed at this point to like, I mentioned this to somebody recently, and I can't remember who it was. It might have actually been Jesse in a conversation that we were having. Go to the Jesse cab.
Jesse, was it you?
Damn it!
Oh,
There he is. We haven't got to use it today.
Flamingos.
And I was saying something about like what's so amazing about our family and this business is like, there's just no like aspiration or vision or anything that I could say right now that like anybody in the room would like be taken aback or like almost be. What were you saying? You said something about this. Oh, is that Drake fucking quote? I don't think it was a real Drake quote. I mean, there's a lot of fake Drake quotes floating around out there. You know.
By the way,
there's a
world,
lot-
why are we just feel like we need to associate intellectual things with Drake?
and it's always a weird picture too. So like one,
Fine.
we give, first of all, we give Drake way too much credit in general, but we also feel the need to like ascribe quotes to people that are probably anonymous, and then we put this weird meme picture, like the picture you posted. It wasn't even Drake doing anything. It was just like him sitting courtside talking to people.
Jesse, how much can you get this?
Can we get that right there?
Oh, that's perfect.
That's beautiful.
Drake once said,
He once said in his musings,
"You can't." It's fucking music.
like Socrates once
Oh,
said.
God,
Drake
God.
says a lot of shit,
Drake
bro. Like,
once said, "You can't talk life goals around people who don't have the same hunger as you. It'll just sound like you're bragging."
it'll sound like, okay, so let me extract that part from the Drake quote. Is like,
Why does it? Hang on, I have a question though. Why does the meme say Drake once said, but the picture is a guy? Jesse, come over here. But the picture is a guy talking to Drake.
Drake
Should
stole that quote.
say, hey, Drake was once told by this fucking dude.
The real genius.
We need
is
to
the guy
get
in
some
the
real
Puma.
credit to this guy in the Puma
Let's
hoodie.
go, Puma.
All right, hey, look, put the only real estate podcast on the map. Come back, baby. And I want everybody to share this out and find this guy. He deserves a proper credit for telling Drake this quote.
If we could find who this guy is and blow him up.
I retract the fact, tag Drake in this.
Yeah.
I retract the fact that Drake said this. He gets no credit for this meme. Sorry, Drake.
We're just going to bury Drake.
Until you tell me. And if this is somebody I should know, I'm sorry for being an idiot.
Yeah, I feel dumb if that's an actual other famous
I feel like
person.
somebody's going to tell me. Dude, I don't know. Anyways, the point being, what? Because you started this.
This was from day one, though. Like, we never created an environment where it just seemed like things shouldn't happen, I guess. I remember somebody had written something about us being number one in our expansion group.
Okay.
And that was like day one in the closet right after everybody had left. And I remember looking up at that, and it didn't feel very good to see it because I knew we were super far from that. I also very much felt at that time like that's why we got into this, right? Is because we're at least chasing something. And nowadays, like, it started with just trying to find a way, and this goes back to like you being the guinea pig. We knew that if we were going to grow the business, we had to find a way to give people their time back and to make producers be able to do more business in either the same or less time.
Sure.
And then through our relationship with Chris, we were able to start build systems that are definitely not perfect at all, but we were able to give opportunity to continue to layer leverage and more systems. And like between you and Chris, that's really how we figured out our entire kind of leverage component, how things should go, like what top producers really need taken off their plate. And then how do we, and that kind of led to the entire like personalization of your business thing. What we kind of tout to people now is like, look, what do you do at a high level? And let's pour into that because we've got the leverage piece figured out. And we say this all the time, like the systems take care of the people that are just joining and haven't really sold a lot of real estate yet, right? Like if you're brand new to the business, we've got coaching, accountability, more leads than you know what to do with. And we're going to kind of tough love you through this because you're going to have to go through some of the stuff that we went through. And you've seen that work with people like Joanna and people like Ashley that have just like, they've bought into that and it's working for them in a huge way. And we're able to talk to people that already have a really established business and go, okay, how do we mash our resources together and use our experience and what's working for other people to help you grow your business and give more of your time back? And then through those different things, the conversation around what's next has gotten so natural and organic in what I think it's taught us over time in this weird bass-ackwards way is like, if you just find people that aren't intimidated by hyper cool growth, that's kind of like the biggest barrier to growing. Like we just rolled this out on Facebook. We have we introduced the property management company that we have now, which is awesome.
Yield.
Dana Wynn is running that. It's badass. Like this is a great example. 65 days ago, maybe we sat in a coffee shop with Dana. And we were talking. So Dana runs our South Lake office now, which we're super, super proud of and excited to continue to grow. But she also runs Homeward Property Management, which we didn't even have a name for 60 days ago. We're sitting in a coffee shop, just like, hey, you have a ton of property management experience. Like, what do the systems for that look like? Okay, we should try that. And now it exists. And we already have properties under management and we figured it out and we built it, and it's probably not perfect and it'll probably break a lot along the way. And if the growth is anything like the growth of our real estate team, we will have 500 properties under management by the end of next year. And I just fucking know that we will, right? And I only say that I know that we will just because we found another person in Dana that when we had this idea of like, why don't we just do this and not be intimidated, or not intimidated, not feeling like we weren't worthy of something bigger. Mm-hmm. Like it's not that hard to start really putting the pieces in place slowly over time. What I think holds so many people back is like, they just don't think shit is possible.
It's implementation, dude. And here's the thing is like all of that, the one thing that all of this has given me is a little bit of perspective. And the one thing that teaches Matt anything is Matt, right? Like don't listen to outside influence very well. And so like, if you just give me over time long enough to convince myself, and this is one of the things that I believe to be true, is that like the perspective over time of like being able to meet people where they're at. The thing with Dana is the most perfect example, right? Like that property management opportunity, that was not, I don't want people to like think that like we had been thinking about it. That was not even on the radar, probably even during the discussion 65 days ago.
The first time that popped into either of our minds was during that conversation when we were like, you used to manage properties, and we were both like, that could be cool.
This ridiculous podcast that 8 people have decided to hang out for, right? Like whatever. Appreciate you. I thank you very much.
I'm not going anywhere, by the way. Anywhere. I'm fucking
Brian's here for
super happy.
Brian's here for it. I had Macy move my 430 back a little bit, so we're good. The whole thing around this though is like implementation has been the one part of this that I was mortified to do on my own because there was way too much risk, whether it be financially or whatever, right? Like I didn't feel like I could weather that storm. That I do think partnership and one of the things that we didn't really touch on super early is I don't know any of the teams that I know personally. All these teams that you and I have always talked about, like, dang, man, they're like doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
That it's just one person totally flying solo. It just isn't like that. And I'm not even talking about like from a leadership perspective. There is so much infrastructure. Adam says like the larger you get, the more you rely on people to succeed, right? Like that's the super crazy and insanely scary truth of what Brian talks about of like just wake up in the middle of the night and be like, everybody left, and I don't really know what to do now, right? Like, that kind of stuff. Like, that doesn't happen if it's just you. Like, if it's just you, you're like, oh, I'm going to fail tomorrow. There's a weird other, like, I don't even know if it's fear, right? But like just realization that it's like, this is so reliant upon this incredibly, what sometimes feel like really fragile ecosystem of people just all contributing, right?
Well, it's just a total mindset shift. It's
Yeah.
like when you're just on your own, your pressure is to show up and do your best every day. And then where we're at now is it's our job to show up and help others be their best every day. And there's a lot of variables there, right?
Yeah.
Like when you don't bring your best self to the table, you trying to get other people, like, I mean, you feel this way sometimes, you run our morning power up
That's
still.
subject to some of my coaching calls.
Yeah. You have the opportunity to take the entire team down every day if you want to with your bullshit in the morning, right? Like just torpedo everyone's day.
Yeah.
And you don't, but that's where the mindset shift just happens. Is like it's no less difficult. It's way more scary though. And there's no company that's just run by one dude. Like there might be one dude who's the most famous guy in the company, right? But like no company is run by just one dude. And like I say that to say that's also a good thing. And I think that's why if you're trying to build something like that on your own, you've got to stop doing it on your own. You got to find the people. The most morbid way to say this is like, I think why it worked for us and it didn't work for us individually, but when we got married, it started to work is it sucks to just drown.
Yeah.
Right. But it's easier to go down with the ship. And I think that we decided that we were tired of having the scare, like that we were tired of having the threat of drowning. And so we decided to build a ship, and both of us like, look, if this shit goes down, at least there's other people on the ship. You know what I mean? Like, it's just easier. There's something honorable about that, right? Like, there's something honorable about going down with the ship. Drowning is kind of embarrassing. It's like, you know what I mean? So I think that's why it's so important to stop trying to be all things to all people and do everything on your own. The only reason we've become successful was because we found our tribe of people. And I know that sounds bougie, but this is why these people mean so much to us.
What'd you call it this morning? Thought Collective.
Thought Collective. It really is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We're able now, Jesse Manuel, not Jesse on the Jesse Cam. Go to the Jesse Cam. Yes, I love it. Yeah, I mean, she had this idea that she wanted to execute on for a long time. That just, the capital up front's a lot. That the implementation of it takes tons of time and all that type of stuff. That's what's been cool about just building a big expansion team. Is like you can just throw ideas out there, and like we can at least give them a shot with a much larger margin of error. And then the whole family just becomes like this thought collective. Like the majority of things that I'm focusing on right now on the back end to make our systems better, somebody else had that idea.
Almost always, right?
Almost always does someone else have that idea.
Yeah.
And that's why we are, I pulled it up just because I wanted to verify what you said. We're at 57 million closed so far this year, 158 units, pretty badass.
Oh,
and
take that.
That's our family that we love doing it. And most of the things that lead to this, that, or the other, the ideas come from the thought collective. They don't come from me and you. Our job is to implement and to execute.
I think it's important to not poo-poo on the idea of talking about production too, right? Because like, here's the thing is, I said this in the meeting yesterday, and I think I said on the 9 a.m. call, and I'm kind of beating it to death, but you know what? I got a lot of different forums, and I'll just say it on all of them.
You guys might not have heard this
new
yet.
audience. I'm going to tell it to you. The reality is like this idea that somehow production shouldn't be talked about. It shouldn't be. I don't think on our team it is one of the top 3 things we talk about, right? I really don't think it is, but I think we talk about how logging your numbers can lead to production.
We want
right?
to track stuff.
We want to track stuff, right? But I do think focusing on production is healthy because one, if we are a family, and we are, right? Like, why in the hell? Like, is there anybody? And you just comment the hell out of this if you disagree with me. Is there anybody who's like, I don't want my family to eat?
Yeah, like
You know what I mean?
isn't
Like,
production what we're trying to do at the end of
why
the day?
would I not want everybody to hit whatever that number is, right? Like, and here's the thing is, I don't care what the number is, right? Like, we had a conversation yesterday when we were looking at production numbers and we were looking at time on team and some things, and we're like, okay, here are the people who are here. They're solid. They're in the green, right? Here are the people here who we need to figure out what the conversation is.
Yeah.
Here's the people here right now. They're still in yellow because they're ramping up.
Yeah.
But they're all at different time frames, right? Like, and when you're able to look at all of that and understand where everybody's at, it allows you to focus the conversation, I think, a little bit differently that I was, again, never able to do because I wasn't having conversations with you. I wasn't having higher level conversations with other CEOs and director of sales. And that's what all of this, dude, honestly, the empty seat in the room, we don't even have a camera on it, but the empty seat in the room, like Nick, dude, he's the reason all of this really started, right?
Sure.
Like, Nick legitimately, when I went to New Orleans in 2016 as part of like being recruited by Keller Williams or whatever, Nick was there and was super cool. There were 3 people who were there that were hugely important in me just being like, all right, cool, I'll go to Keller Williams because I don't really know what to do and I'm kind of drowning over here, right? And that led to all of this stuff, the podcast, you and I, the team, all this stuff. Right? I could probably trace that whole butterfly effect back to like some diaper change I had, right? But like the reality is like it all did happen due to certain key relationships.
Yep.
And I think that's what a lot of people kind of leave out of the team building aspect. They don't talk about the fact that like, dude, I don't know a single one of these people who've had any level of success without like 7 or 8 other people.
And you're right, and I think that goes back to because you're right. We don't harp on. I don't think production is one of the top 3 things that we talk about, and I don't know when that changed in our business, but I think it's super true. Like
It might be a miss. I mean, I don't know.
No, I don't think it is because we talk about like team meeting yesterday is a great example, right? Like because I was going to ask you about this. This is like one of my one thing that I prepared for this conversation is I was going to ask you like when.
We're an hour and 14 minutes in before Brian got to his first prepared statement.
He's going to look at my envelope and pull. Yeah. I was going to ask you, like, when do you feel like the change was where we stopped? Because I don't feel like when we're talking to like the family, I feel like we talk way less tactical stuff now. We have coaches, right? We have systems. We have an entire operational hierarchy and structure. Like, I think the systems take care of the tactical side. Mm-hmm. I think you and I talk way more going back to like, we want this business to just be fun for people and fulfilling for people. Like, I think you and I talk way more about more like the personal growth aspect of things. Like we spent most of the team meeting yesterday talking about like a vision for your future self and diet. You know what I mean? And if you don't think that those things are important to a real estate team, like that's where my mind has started to grow, right? I say this all the time. The only thing you need to be able to do to sell real estate in America is speak English and type on a computer, right? Exactly. So I know we beat this to death, but everything again after that does come back to mindset. And like after we got back past the tactical stuff, like I think that that's what's become really cool about our growth as a culture is like we don't have to try hard to pour into people. We genuinely care about everybody from a personal standpoint. But then our message to our family has started to really adapt to be way less tactical and just way more personally, like personal growth oriented. You know, I think we talk way more about your mind than we do about anything else.
I think a little bit of that, or maybe a lot of bit of that, is that like that's just the journeys that you and I are on, right?
Yeah.
And so like we're just going to we're going to bring that stuff back because it's super relevant, right? Like the whole kind of personal journey part. And we have a lot of people on our team who are also at various levels of that. And I think what happens when you bring back like all of this, because here's the thing is it's just way too much, right? Like it's all when somebody's like, oh, I'm personal journeying, it's like, dude, just get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like we just like, that's cool. That's great. Like also like you're just bringing me too much. You're doing too much different shit. Yeah. Like I don't need all this change right now. Like I'm not where you're at. Get out of here. Right? Like, so like, but there's also these really great like opportunities, I think, for some of that stuff just to hear certain nuggets or whatever. Right. So like, I really like the fact, and you said, you know, like I really like the fact that we now have the opportunity to have tactical stuff.
Yeah.
That is just happens through the way certain things are structured, whether it be like, you know, the coaching stuff or the meetings. And we have the opportunity to get kind of like super, it's not crazy deep, but meeting with everybody every couple of weeks, and especially talking, and look, guys, I'll say, to implement certain things, we're completely reevaluating how we do our one-on-one type of things with the agents, right? Like, to really peel the actual legitimate day-to-day ops stuff back. Like, right now, we are actively working on a few things, and one of those things is, how do we make the bi-weekly one-on-ones with the agents more valuable for everybody involved, right? What are better questions to ask? What are better routes to take to bring resources to them? What are better ways to take that data and actually make it applicable to where, the same thing I would want if I reached out to Boomtown and was like, hey, this feature that you don't have, it's annoying as shit. Why does this not exist? Please make it exist, right? This can't be that hard. It's everywhere else.
And I mean, you hit the nail on the head that like we reformatted some of the way that we're doing like some of our one-on-ones and stuff. But at the same time, we're also sticking to what I think is kind of our soul now, which is we've sort of retrofitted our one-on-ones to be a little bit more. The conversation is now based on our numbers that we try to track, right? But the numbers that we try to track don't make the conversation like, you fell short of your thing, and this is the model. We take those numbers as a snapshot of like what your activities were, because we already know what your commitment to your business is. And then that frames the conversation around, hey, you're kicking ass. What's changed and why you're kicking so much ass? Or, hey, you're kind of fucking up on your numbers right now. What's going on with you? Because I know you're not.
Yep.
Like, we've solved. I will say right now, we do less tactical stuff than we do solving other problems that really have nothing to, like, you and I are routinely trying to solve childcare problems for people. Turns out sometimes when your numbers aren't right, it's because you got some whole other thing going on that we didn't know about. That we didn't know about, that we're like, look, that's the real issue. It's not your drive. It's not your, it's that you got this thing back here. How can the team help you solve that? Right? You need to be here at this time. Like, this is what's going on with you or whatever. Like, people, like, we wouldn't partner with people if they were just flat out lazy. So that's never the conversation. Anytime that the conversation is around, hey, we need we want to get you from here to here, it's usually about, I already know you, I know who you are. It's not that you're just not showing up and don't care. What's going on with you, and how do we solve that? Right? And that's where you build a culture, I think, around. I don't say you and I, Lady, Kristen, Macy, Nancy, everybody. We are, if anything, problem solvers. And then the reality is, most of the problems that hold people back, they don't have to do with the day-to-day of real estate. That's how you build a family, is trying to help people with all the other shit in their life that's getting in the way.
Rejection is the thing that kicks the shit out of people, right? Like, just that it is not fun to be told no. It's not fun to be uncomfortable, right? It's not fun. Like, anything that's painful, we're going to kind of naturally resist.
Sure.
And there are some just natural things in real estate that you have to accept. Like, okay, this part of it is going to kind of be, sometimes it's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to be bad. Sometimes it's going to be less worse and more worse, whatever, right? Like,
right.
And that is really shitty place to have to sit for a little bit. And most real estate agents, they're fine with doing that. Some people find this really sweet avenue where they don't have to, where they don't have to. And then other agents think that that is the model, and it's not. It's the exception. And that is the most unfortunate part about real estate, is the fact that there are so many people who think that it's going to be easier than whatever they were doing before. And it turns out that it's a lot more difficult. And I really enjoy doing difficult things with other people. And that's, for me, that's been the biggest deal of what started with partnering with you, but really ultimately kind of, for me, has gotten lost until we start reminiscing like this. That part of it has gotten completely lost in the fact that, like, there are so many other relationships that have come from that now.
Yeah.
Like, so many other relationships. So many relationships that I've gotten to go deeper on, because had I stayed by myself, I wouldn't have still been with her. I very realistically probably may have failed completely the fuck out. Right. Like, and then all these other relationships, like, there's just so many things that happen because of certain decisions. And it's really cool to be a part of this larger, like I said, this larger umbrella of like all these people to get to hang out under, and they're all doing really cool stuff, and the numbers look awesome, and the relationship looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And after call nights, people are going out and having wine and stuff. Like,
Oh, yeah.
dude, it's freaking. It still seems really crazy.
It is. It's the thing. It's the one thing I wish, because we have so many relationships or so many conversations and relationships, but conversations with other business owners that, you know, we routinely have conversations with agents and business owners that are not super happy with where they're at right now. And like, we talk about ego a lot. Like, ego is the one thing that stands in a lot of people's way. Is like, we talk about taking the name off the door a lot and all that type of stuff. Like,
Every time.
it's funny because you and I haven't really even talked about that in forever. Like, it wasn't never really a big thing for either of us. And then it's that one thing that I wish I could get through to some people. There are some people out there that I wish I could get through to that's like, dude, just like, why do you care about you doing it on your own so badly? Nobody does anything on their own, right? Like, just the mountains that you have to climb by not allowing other people to help you. And I say help. You help, like, build that mutually beneficial relationship. Like, my other question to you was going to be like, what do you want to do next? And we're in a position now to actually answer that question with some sort of like legitimate, like, whatever we say right here, we could figure out. And who knows if it succeeds or fails, but there's a better chance that it succeeds than it fails. And I know that we've been talking with other business owners for a long time about possibly working together or things like that. And their one hang up is that they don't want to give up, quote unquote, control. And I'm sitting here just like not now looking back, not really understanding, because I'm like, all I can tell you is the things that I personally have no desire to control. Like, I'm trying to give away more control because I know that furthers all of us. I'm trying to find the person who should be in control of whatever it is, right? Like, we found the person that should be in control of the property management company.
Yeah.
And I know that my role is to support and build back-end systems and make her life way easier and pour my heart and soul into refining it and making it as efficient as possible. But like, do you think that like either of us are sitting there like, well, we really want to do it on our own? Like, fuck that, dude.
It's a
I don't
weird
want to
left
do
turn
that in
to make.
any business.
No, me neither.
You know, and so that idea of like having that resistance to working with others so that we all succeed. One, you are limiting your upside to potential. You're limiting your upside to potential to literally your talent and skill level and competency in whatever areas. And that's where it ends.
Yeah.
We're able to access our entire family's skill set, competency, creative ideas, thought processes, desires, passions, all of that, and run with it. And there's so many people out there that I don't understand that from, that are hesitant to take their name off the door is the easy way is to say it, but hesitant to work with others to further all of their common goals. You're always going to get so much further working with people that want the same outcome as you, but they're bringing things to the table that you're not bringing. And likewise.
It's just perspective, dude. I mean, like, you couldn't have told me any different until I was told different. Like, it's one of those dickhead ass country sayings like, oh, there's like a hot in a June bug, a grasshopper in his ass. Like, it's like, all right, whatever. Like, cool. It's one of those things. It's like, I don't really know why I didn't understand certain things earlier.
Some dogs won't hunt.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't know why I didn't understand something yesterday that I understand today, but I guess I'm just super stoked to understand it today.
Yeah, man. I love you, brother.
I think that's all I got.
Me too. This was fun.
This was, man. That's pretty good.
Nick needs to go out of town once a month.
Yeah, Nick. Hey, sad chair, bro. Look at this. Every time I was on camera, it's just little Nick. I should have had a little
There you
picture
go.
of Nick just sitting up there. It should have been that hideous picture from the side of that damn car, bro. Please, Jiminy Christmas.
We're gonna post that in the group.
Rewrap the car, dude. We need you to get
It's
that
so bad.
crap the heck out of here. All right. In memory of Nick for today, we'll give you his outro. Hey, Jesse, get us out of here, baby.
Hey, thank you for watching. We truly appreciate it. Checking out another episode of the Only Real Estate Podcast Worth Listening to. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead, hit that share button, hit that like button, and hit the subscribe button. Right? We're dropping more stuff on YouTube constantly. If you're on iTunes, leave us a review, please. We're really, really focused on building up those reviews so we can get more searchable content on there. And if you're on Facebook, like everyone else is, go over and search the Only Real Estate Group worth being a part of. You're going to want to go join that group. I'm telling you right now, there's so much gold in there. So go join, share us on YouTube, and leave us that iTunes review. Please go do it right now. We'll see you on the next show.